Hello, E2. My name is Kathy Kersnowski, and I'm so excited to be here with you for E2 this year. What a fantastic international global event for educators. Today, I will be moderating a panel called How to Build Your Brand on Social, and we have three fantastic panelists, Holly Clark, Ken Shelton, and Rochelle Dene-Poth, and I'll introduce them to you in just a minute. But before I do, just a little about me. I'm an MIE expert. I'm a Microsoft Master Trainer, a global learning mentor, and this year I'm also a fellow here in the United States. And lastly, I'm the co-author of this book called Sail the Seven Seas with Microsoft Education, and I hope that you get a chance to check it out. The objective for this session that we're doing here today is a good one. The objective is helpful advice for educators who are looking to develop a wider audience, greater influence, and add value. And we have the perfect people with whom to discuss that. First up, Holly Clark. You can read a little bit more about her on this slide, but please just know that Holly is super accomplished, well known throughout the education world, and one of the best people we could find to talk about building your brand and utilizing social media and taking things to the next level when it comes to sharing your voice and adding value. Next up, we have the fabulous Ken Shelton, another accomplished educator whose voice is being heard around the world as he talks about powerful ideas, concepts, ideas, thoughts, and has so much to share with us today. And finally, we have Rochelle Dene-Poth, who just has her finger on the pulse of everything that's going on in education and is a fantastic sharer. She's really good at what she does, and she's got some great tips to share with us today. And so I will ask you, please stay tuned for the very last slide. Stay tuned till the end, because at the very end of this, we will be giving you two cool things. One, a redemption code for the Microsoft Educator Center so that you can get credit for being here today and earn some points in there. And secondly, there'll be some really interesting poll results from these three collated into a bar graph that shows which social media tools they feel probably have the most impact. So stay tuned for that. Now, let me introduce you to my three friends. And here they are. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Rochelle and Ken and Holly. So glad you're here to talk to us today about social media and branding and influence and sharing your knowledge and the way that you've become successful at that. So here's the format for today. We have 6 questions, and you each will have a minute to answer each one. And after that, we have 2 fast questions that'll come out where you'll have like 20 seconds to give pro advice and pro tips. And that should take us to the end. So let's jump in and start with our first question. And we're going to let Holly take this one first. Here's the question for all of you. Think back to when you first started with social media, with being online. What little things did you do at the beginning to start to gain a following or really feel impactful in the broader educational arena? Holly?
Well, thank you, and I'm so excited to be here. This is my first E2, so this is great. But for me, I started in 2012. My first thing was Twitter, obviously, and I followed some really impactful educators, and I watched what they did, and I got involved in the conversation. So whenever they said something, I responded. I was in the comments. And that's how I kind of started to fill out how to make my way in the social media field. And I got really excited about a few people. Pretty soon they were talking to me back, and it was, at first sometimes it was like, oh my gosh, people I know really well now. I was like, oh, he followed me, So I just really let people be my mentors, even though they didn't know it.
That's awesome. What about you, Ken?
Yeah, I think for me, my initial start was also, I would say the big social media platform was Twitter. I didn't go into it with an intent on who I was following or who was following me. I was more around who can I be connected to in a digital and asynchronous space. And, just like Holly, I think the more, if you approach it from the perspective of you want to connect to other folks for whatever reasons you're connecting with them, and you use it as a platform for interaction when you're not sharing the same physical space, just by way of either contributing to the conversations, adding to the learning, or even just being engaged in the dialogue, you're going to naturally build a follower base just upon that alone. So I think for me, that was my main thing, was who can I be connected to, especially in the context of being at conferences where it's like, oh, you had a great session. I want to be able to keep the dialogue going after the conference is over. So that was pretty much my approach. It was more around who can I learn from rather than who's going to follow me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still great at that. And Rochelle?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and similar to what Holly and Ken both said, I mean, for me, I wasn't on Twitter for a long time, and I honestly really didn't know what I was doing when I started. I kind of fell into a chat, wasn't even in my state, and connected with people who then I met in person at my first ISTE the following year. And so that was kind of a realization for me, like, wait, I can build this network online without having ever met anybody. And I just started to get into some different chats, following people, asking for recommendations. Like, I really like doing some of the chats certain days of the week. And then I noticed some of the same people were in some of the other chats. And then when I started to be able to go to conferences, like Ken said, and either meeting them in person for the first time and then following their friends, because you build your network from their network, or just from after sessions say, hey, you know, I'd love to be able to connect with you after. Let's exchange Twitter, like right now in this moment, so that we are connected, we can keep that conversation going. But it's definitely something that has evolved over time. But I just started with one chat and just built it up based on my interests and the people that I connected with.
And there are lots of people watching right now who are exactly where you were right then, just getting started, maybe new to Twitter or social media. So I'm sure that they're taking this advice to heart. And let's jump into our second question. So what tips and tricks can you share for really getting noticed? How can educators who are watching this start to build a following? And we'll go to Ken first.
So I think the first step is to not concern yourself with getting noticed. What I have found is a lot of educators that focus on getting noticed do what's called peacocking. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And in some cases, they're not really offering anything of value to the conversation because their intent is on that number, that counter of followers. I always share with educators, focus on the fidelity and the depth of your followers. In other words, how much engagement are you having? And just by way of contributing to the conversations. I love what Rochelle shared there is I have a whole bunch of distinctly different groups that I connect to on Twitter, on Instagram. Those are the main ones that I use. But the whole idea around that is I can engage in a conversation about photography, which is a passion area of mine, but I can engage in a conversation about education. I can engage in a conversation with educational technology. And just by way of doing that in different spaces based on different passion areas or different purpose areas, you're going to naturally build a following, but you're going to do it in an authentic capacity. So for me, I think that's what I would encourage educators to do, is really find your passion areas and follow folks in those areas, contribute to the dialogue in those areas. And just by way of your contributions to that dialogue, you're going to naturally build a sustainable following.
Quality over quantity. I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
Rochelle, how about you?
Yeah, similar again to what Ken was saying. I think the best advice that I can give is you don't want to just be out there and just like retweeting and sharing or whatever. Like, it's whenever you contribute to it in a way that you are giving your perspective or your experience from it. And I think the best thing is if you're passionate about project-based learning, for example, and you are on Facebook or you're on Instagram or you're on Twitter, wherever that space is, and sharing it, and also just being real about what it is that you're sharing so that people see you, they connect with you, and they start to it's like, oh, wait, that resonates with me. I would like to have this person in my network. And when you feel that you've had an experience, I mean, there's nothing better than just sharing your story, because there is always somebody out there that needs to hear it. And so what is it that you're going through? What is it that you wish somebody else knew? Like, if they were in your shoes, what is the information that you can share? And I think that's the best way that you can just go about starting to build your network, is just sharing who you are and also being interested in what other people have to share too.
So people will respect and find and follow the genuine you. That's what I'm getting. And how about you, Holly?
So I have 2 words that describe my tip, and it is add value. How are you adding value to the conversation? And I see a lot of people who are putting stuff on TikTok, which I'm really into right now. They're not really adding value. They're saying a couple things, and it doesn't give people the information they need to make change in their classroom tomorrow. So that's my biggest tip, is how are you adding value? Because you just putting out a statement or retweeting a picture of you at a conference isn't adding value. People aren't going to retweet that. They're not going to want to retweet that. And so I like to think in my head, is this something that people would share? And if they would share it, then it's something I probably want to put out there. I'm also going to just put comments about things sometimes, and I'm also going to have fun and have a personality. But number one, always going through my head is, how am I adding value?
And you definitely do that in your social media. You add tons of value, and that's why people love following you. So the next question is, and you know what, this is going to go to Rochelle first. Talk about branding. Actually, it's part of the title of this session. And how important is branding, and what does that even mean to you, Rochelle?
That's a great question. Initially, I mean, when we hear brand, when we shop or anything that we do, we recognize brands, right? We know what it's about, we know what it stands for. And so when I think about a personal branding, it is, when you look at somebody, you want them, or when they look at you too, that you want them to understand, what you're about, what your interests are. It's your presence that you create online. It's what you convey to others, the relationships that you build in the process. And I think it is important because you want people to know, who you are, what your story is, why something matters to you, why you do the work that you do. And I think it just comes to be, it's important because you want to be, I don't want to say necessarily known for just one thing or known for something, but it's how people tend to think of you, or what they know of your work and who you are, the kind of person you are, whether that means you're really authentic or if you're very intentional in the work that you do. So I think it is important that you have some type of brand about you, but I don't think that some specific only one brand should define you, if that makes sense.
Interesting. That's interesting. How about you, Holly? Branding?
So I hate the word branding. Let's say that. But I also keep in mind that I have a brand, and my brand is, I'm all about students first. I'm all about pedagogy, not about just using a tool to use a tool. So I keep that in mind when I'm trying to share something or add value. I keep with pedagogy is my thing. So when you come to a session at ISTE, I'm going to be talking about pedagogy. And that's what I'm focusing in on. You also should know from the things that I share that I'm more focused in on the student and student agency than I am really on the teacher. And another thing around branding, I do keep an eye on that I use the same colors, that I have images that you see those images and you go, oh, that's a Holly Clark graphic. And I think that you do that. And I don't know if that's important, good or bad, but it's how I do it.
That's great. And yes, you definitely do have a recognizable brand, an image kind of a thing that goes with Holly Clark that we all know. How about you, Ken? How do you feel about branding?
So I actually reject the use of that word, period. But I'm going to share with you all why, because I think the comments that Holly and Rochelle just shared are important. What I have found, and I'm going to age myself a little bit, I remember when Coca-Cola introduced the new Coke, and that wasn't part of their brand, and look what happened. Now, the reason why I'm sharing that as a metaphorical representation of educators that use brand is because Coke was trying to follow a trend. And then when they deviated from what was their core authentic business, it fell flat. And I just watch how a lot of educators, they use this word branding as if it's like, well, this is my brand, this is my, and what they do is they lack any degree of authenticity. And ultimately what a lot of them do, which since we're talking about social media, I stopped following a lot of them because what they equate to me is educational grifters. What they're doing is, my brand is this. Oh, people are talking about that. I'm going to shift to that. Oh, they're talking about that. I'm going to shift to that, instead of maintaining the authenticity. And I think Holly just brought up an important point there that for me, being a designer as well, I think is critical. What Holly posts, when she posts her graphics, because she's using a consistent color scheme and design pattern, that is a part of the brand. But again, there's a degree of authenticity that must be a part of that. And I think for anyone who's watching this, the key is, what is my voice and how am I representing it? And here's one that I always tell everyone. When you meet someone you follow and through social media in person, are they the same person? Because if they are not, then they're not authentic and genuine in their social media spaces. So therefore, they're what I call charlatans. So that's why I don't really like the use of the word brand. I understand the purpose of branding, but what I always say is, what is your story? What is your true authentic self, and how are you contributing to the dialogue? And when I attend a session or meet you in person, are you going to be the same person then as what I see on the social media spaces?
I hear you. All right, ready for the next question, everybody? Holly, this one's coming to you first. Do you remember having any especially viral moments, times when you knew that your content was just exploding?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had not quite a few, but I've had enough to understand it. I've even had some on TikTok. And what I get them with usually is when I'm controversial. And I say something like, we don't need to do tests, something or other, whatever. And that's when I will get a lot of virality in something. I once put, my most viral post I've ever done was about putting objectives on the board. I was sitting next to a student who was talking to another student who said, that's stupid objectives the teacher puts on the board. So I was on a plane and I tweeted it, that I'm sitting next to a student who says the objectives that we put on the board are horrible. And that thing probably had 10,000 retweets. And because I think teachers know that that's true, but they're forced to do something that they don't want to do. So when you talk about the things that we know that are bad in our jobs, that does go viral.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Wow. How about you, Ken?
I remember that. For me, I don't. And Holly brings up an important point there. So I don't know what we would define as a baseline for something that's viral. I prefer to use the word impactful, because I've seen plenty of things that have gone viral that really are nothing more than just someone posted a video that, listen, the video of the guy, remember the guy singing the Fleetwood Mac song while he was on a skateboard in Idaho, and that went viral. It was a cool thing, but to Holly's point before, was that adding value? I mean, I thought it was cool, but it's something that's unique. I think for us, in the context of our conversation here, the key is, are you just simply perpetuating status quo messaging, or are you providing divergent thinking? And to the point that Holly just shared, one of the more recent posts that I did that still comes around was the whole idea around educators that are constantly saying Maslow before Bloom, Maslow before Bloom. And I just posted something. I said, you all need to understand that Abraham Maslow plagiarized, whitewashed, and sanitized the learnings that he engaged in from the indigenous peoples of what is present day North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and southern Alberta, is the Blackfoot peoples. They have a approach of life where it's self-actualization, community actualization, and cultural perpetuity. He took that, plagiarized it, didn't cite his source, and then created his hierarchy of needs, which is highly individualized. So that picked up a whole lot of steam, because it was something that people hadn't heard before. It challenged status quo thinking. And ultimately, for me, my whole thing is, I put that out not because I'm hoping it goes viral. I'm putting it out because, like, okay, here's something that's normalized, that's problematic. And as a result of my learning, I want to share. Going back to what we talked about before, are you contributing to the dialogue? And then even as a result of that, I got a bunch of private messages with people like, oh my God, I'm going to stop using Maslow. I'm like, this is why we use social media, because I would have brought that up in a conference, but think about the reach that you can have with your social media platform that extends far beyond just being at a conference or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to talk about.
Ooh, interesting similarity to Holly's story. Just controversy or opinion or those kinds of things really driving some reactions from people. How about you, Rochelle?
Yes.
I don't know that I have anything quite like that. But I will say that for me, just because I don't want to say I'm just a Spanish teacher, but a Spanish teacher and a STEAM teacher. And often people are surprised at some of the content that I teach, like augmented virtual reality, artificial intelligence. And so a lot of what I do, the research, has been, in the articles I've written or my podcast where I talk to myself about things, have been about those topics. And I've gotten, in the course of maybe the last 6 months or so at this point, hard to keep track during this time, but I've had people reach out to me from like places all around the world saying, wow, I listened to your podcast and I shared it with all of these people, and can you make a couple short videos? Or thank you so much for the podcast that you recorded where you're talking about the hybrid experience, and I shared it with my teachers. And I'm getting these messages coming back. And while it's not like I tweeted them out repeatedly or anything, or I was looking for a certain number of likes or to gain new followers, I was just sharing what I was experiencing or what I thought would be helpful to somebody else. And so for me, whether or not that went viral, I think for me, it was just the spread and the reach, like to have the Department of, I think, Ministry or something in Portugal contact me about doing something for AI. I was like, at first I thought it was not for real, but it was. And I thought, I had no idea how it reached out, that far. Or, well, anyway, but for me, it's just been something that I've written about that's maybe pushed thinking in a different way, or else given people the confidence to actually try something different that they think maybe doesn't apply to them in their work.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yes.
ties back to what Ken said in the beginning, when Ken said
There's
it's
a
not really
pattern here.
viral. It's not about being viral, it's about being impactful.
Yeah.
There's a pattern. There's a pattern here that I'm sure that the audience will be hearing from the three of us.
Right.
Yeah. This is a question where we're just going to ask you for your best advice in 20 seconds or less. What are your best pro tips for people to get engaged in the social media and make an impact and add value?
Pro tip for me is I have to go back to add value and the use of hashtags. I think hashtags can tell people what you're after, and then they can also find them. Although the thing and I know it's rapid fire, but the thing that went viral had no hashtags. So anyway, that's my tip.
Great. Rochelle?
All right. My tip is, because there's so many spaces out there to connect in and it can be overwhelming, you don't have to do all of the things at once. Just find one. Pick, is it Twitter? Is it a specific night of the week? That's how I started. I was like, Monday, I'm going to do an hour and a half and I'm just going to join in. Or on Facebook, find something that meets like your interests and your time and start with that one, build your network, and then build from there.
Love it. Ken?
My tip is aligned with the algorithms of oppression. Diversify your feed. Those algorithms are designed to be a mirror of your status quo, and it is very easy to have your own echo chamber within who you follow. So be intentional of diversifying your feeds, auditing how diverse are the people, the roles, the representations. Rochelle just shared something that's extremely valuable of learning from educators in an entirely different continent. Diversify your feed so that what you're consuming doesn't ultimately become simply an affirmation and validation of what you're thinking.
You guys have the best pro tips. Okay, one more rapid fire, 20 seconds or less, words of encouragement to anybody who's out there maybe just getting started with all of this. And we'll start with Rochelle.
All right. So don't do what I did, or if this is where you find yourself now, keeping yourself isolated, because I did that for so many years and I missed out on so many opportunities for myself, for my students. So pick one thing, connect with one person, get in that chat, start somewhere, connect with us, anything, just like know that it doesn't happen overnight and you don't have to build this great following. You just got to start somewhere. Just got to start.
Awesome. How about you, Ken? Words of encouragement?
Yeah, my word of encouragement is keep in mind that social media life is not real life, and try not to compare yourself to those that have hundreds of thousands of millions of followers. Ultimately, it's not the volume of followers, it's the quality of the connections that you make.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
And Holly, finish us out there. What are your best words of encouragement for everybody watching?
Mine is be a voice, not an echo. And if you are a voice and not an echo, you're going to bring value.
Love it.
Wow. What a fun chat this was. What a great panel you are. Thank you so much. I couldn't wait to hear your answers to all these questions. I knew what the questions were, but I couldn't wait to hear what you all had to share. I learned a lot from you, and I know that everybody watching did too.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I learned a lot, and it was great to connect with three educators who have such valuable advice to offer. So here are two more things that I promised you if you stayed tuned till the end. First, here are the poll results not even the panelists have seen. These are curated, collated results from a survey I sent out to them asking them which content tends to perform best, which of these social media platforms. So not a surprise to see Twitter in the lead. Speaking engagements is up there too, but we definitely know TikTok is up and coming, so that's on the chart now too. Just pretty interesting. And the other thing that I promised I would share with you is the code for the Microsoft Educator Center. So your redemption code is right there on the screen, T-KKFD3B921. And to redeem that, of course, you'll just go to the Microsoft Educator Center, click on My Profile in the upper right-hand corner, and then follow the directions on this screen to be able to redeem those codes. And that is the end of our panel presentation for today. I am Kathy Kersnowski. I'm so glad you were able to join us today. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your E2 experience.